Hello and welcome to Midday Report here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. We can say Europe is safer than it was 6 months ago, said Polish member of the European Parliament, Michał Szczerba, in an interview with TVP World. The politician summarized the outcomes of this year's Polish presidency, which, in his opinion, will be remembered for Poland's strong commitment and decisive actions in the security sector.
In this presidency, during this presidency, also our strategic documents like Readiness 2030 mentioned some flagship projects. Among them, we can give you some examples. It's the Eastern Border Shield, which was proposed by Polish government, but also a project of Baltic Defense Line presented by the Baltic states. So these flagship projects will have a special opportunity to be financed by SAFE, but also by other instruments provided by the European Commission. It's a strategic shift which was made during this presidency. Security is number one. And of course, a success of Polish presidency is in correlation with NATO summit. Without what we did with deficit rules, the member states will not be able to agree to spend 5% of its GDP on defense and security. So we created the first step, which was used, and now we can say Europe is more safer than 6 months ago.
And following on from that, in an interview with TVP World, Polish Deputy Foreign Minister Władysław Teofil Bartoszewski summarized Poland's presidency in the European Union. He added that the priorities in Europe have clearly shifted during Poland's term, not only towards military security, but also towards the protection of other critical infrastructure.
The theme of the presidency was Security Europe, and this is what it was devoted to. And for the first time, we actually managed to unite 27 member states in thinking that security for us, broadly taken, that is not only military security and expansion of our military industries, to rearming Europe, but also energy security. We are now trying to diversify. And as of 2027, no Russian hydrocarbons will be bought in the member states. Food security, in Poland we are lucky because we export our food. We have enough, but we have to be able to feed 460 million Europeans ourselves. Cybersecurity, we are under constant threat, and this is something which now came to the fore in the last 6 months, and everybody agrees that these are the priorities for Europe as a whole in the years to come, and that was not the case, say, 2 years ago.
Europe is ready for a breakthrough, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said in Brussels following the European Council summit that has pledged to an unprecedented defence spending increase. Accompanied by European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen and President of the European Council Antonio Costa, the Polish official went on to praise the Polish presidency of the EU Council, which comes to a close at the end of June.
Europa się przebudziła.
Europe has awakened, and Europe today, and this is clear in every aspect, is ready for a very serious breakthrough. The European Union in these difficult times is becoming a community that will be marked not by idealism, although the ideals remain, not by illusions, not by empty hopes for a better world, but by the European Union becoming a conscious global player in times of wars, unrest, trade conflicts, a war right on our doorstep. The motto of our presidency was a safe Europe and a simple, straightforward Europe, understandable to people, friendly to people, to citizens, to entrepreneurs.
Speaking at a press conference, President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen also congratulated Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk on the achievements Poland accomplished during his presidency of the Council of the EU. Poland was in the leadership position for the first 6 months of 2025. As of July, Denmark will take over.
Your presidency was challenging, but you delivered. You closed 37 major legislative files. and reached negotiation mandates on another 18. Those are impressive figures. You advanced support to Ukraine with agreements on our 16th and 17th sanctions packages and new tariffs on Russian and Belarusian goods. You pushed forward on temporary protection, showing to our continent the power of Polish generosity and solidarity. You helped fast-track the SAFE regulation and moved forward with the European Defence Industry Programme to make our common home stronger and safer. This was a focused, efficient presidency that laid the groundwork for Denmark as of July.
As Poland draws closer to ending its rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union, preparations are underway for its grand musical finale.
A series of free concerts will take place this Friday across 5 major Polish cities. Kraków, Poznań, Bydgoszcz, Gdańsk and Rzeszów will host shows, each centered on different values Poland focused on during its presidency: freedom, solidarity, protecting the environment, and intergenerational and intercultural dialogues. There will be 8 stages set up across the 5 cities to wrap up Poland's time at the helm of the Council of the EU and to celebrate through various genres of music. The performances will be live-streamed by TVP.
Polish citizens see the potential for a Russian invasion on their country as likely, and the Polish preparedness for the war is low. That's according to the latest opinion poll by the IBRIS Institute of Market and Social Research, commissioned by the Stand with Ukraine Foundation and Defense 24.
27% of the Polish population believes that Poland is unprepared for a potential Russian attack, compared with 8% who believe that Poland is well prepared. The opinion poll shows that 12% of Poles believe a Russian attack on Poland to be a likely scenario. 3/4 of Poles say that NATO should prepare for a Russian invasion by strengthening the alliance's eastern flank. Half of the Polish population wants to see more defense spending, and 72% believes that civilians should undergo basic military training, as the perception of Poland's preparedness is rather low in the society.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski provided a summary of this year's NATO summit in The Hague, describing it as a productive gathering for all attendees, NATO allies, Europe and Ukraine. He emphasized that US President Donald Trump now recognizes that it is Russia and Russia alone that is slowing down the path to an unconditional peace in Ukraine.
It was a very fruitful summit. I believe President Trump now understands that it's Russia that does not want to end the war, that Ukraine has unconditionally agreed to a ceasefire, and Russia that continues to stall. In my remarks, I emphasize that this shows a lack of respect from Vladimir Putin toward President Trump's peace initiatives. On this point, all statements at the NATO-Ukraine Council were aligned. According to the Ukrainian side, the meeting between President Zelensky and President Trump was fruitful. And finally, we had a meeting in the E5 format, invented in Warsaw, which includes Poland, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and Italy.
Denmark is holding military exercises in Greenland amid tensions between Copenhagen and Washington over Donald Trump's comments on the US possibly annexing the Danish island. In a show of military preparedness, the Danish frigate participated in firing exercises along the coast of Greenland. Danish F-16 fighter jets dominated the sky over the island, also taking part in an exercise engaging a larger passenger aircraft. Troops on the ground participated in various exercises, including using other military transport equipment, such as quads. Military helicopters were also lifted and participated in increased surveillance around critical infrastructure. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has rejected opposition calls for a swift reintroduction of compulsory military service, adding that any return to such a solution would require gradual implementation and meticulous planning. Pistorius explained that Germany currently lacks the necessary barracks and training grounds to reinstate conscription. He further noted that his country would adhere to voluntary service if recruitment levels remained sufficient, but did not rule out mandatory service if numbers fall short. Compulsory military service in Germany was scrapped in 2011. Russia has summoned the German ambassador following allegations of harassment against Russian journalists working in Germany. The diplomatic tension comes after accusations of unjust expulsions of Russian reporters. The Russian Foreign Ministry called in the German ambassador on Friday after spokesperson Maria Zakharova accused Germany of persecuting Russian journalists. This comes after several reports of Russian reporters being expelled from Germany, which the German authorities claim was due to residency regulations and not political reasons. Zakharova criticized Berlin for what she described as pressure and harassment of Russian correspondents. In response, Germany stated that Russian journalists are welcome to work in the country without restrictions. This move follows Russia's retaliation last November when it expelled a German journalist after a similar incident involving Russian state media reporters. Recently released Belarusian opposition leader Serhiy Tikhanovsky and his wife Svetlana joined us in our Warsaw studio to share what he endured during his years in prison. They spoke with TVP World about what they had to endure and about their plans for the future.
They used to tell me, no one knows you, no one remembers you, you're not getting letters because no one is writing to you. And yet, when I was in the same prison before, I received up to 300 letters a day. Now, I've been sitting here for 2.5 years, not a single letter. They've forgotten you. They said the same thing to the other political prisoners. You're worthless to them. Everyone out there is corrupt. They steal money. They do nothing. Yes, they put pressure on us every single day. They said, you'll be here forever. In Belarus, they are extending prison terms for inmates. At first, I was sentenced to 18 years, and then, supposedly for bad behavior, they added another 18 months. For example, they come into your cell and say, it's not clean enough here, meaning you're not cleaning properly. They take a rag, wipe a spot on the wall where the paint is peeling and say, see, he's not cleaning. And then they add more prison time. First, they give you 15 days in solitary confinement, but that's just the beginning. You're punished administratively, and that becomes the basis for opening a criminal case under Article 401. And then they add another 1.5 years, sometimes 2 years to your sentence. They told me directly, there will be many more such extensions. You'll never get out.
This exclusive interview with Serhiy Tikhanovsky and his wife Svetlana will premiere on World News tonight at 8 p.m. CET. The bodies of Russian soldiers killed in Ukraine are often returned to their families unidentified, with their relatives forbidden to open sealed coffins, according to a report by Radio Free Europe. Authorities do not provide any reason for the ban, only telling the relatives that the opening of the coffins is against the law. However, the law does not bar relatives from opening coffins for burial. Some Russian families are said to have buried a wrong body, only to be told by authorities to dig up the coffin and return it to the rightful family. The exact number of families who have received and buried the remains of strangers is unknown, as Russian officials do not release such reports. According to a recent study published by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, as many as 250,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in Ukraine since Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. A Chinese journalist has been reported injured in a drone strike near Russia's border with Ukraine in the Kursk region, which some claim highlights the increasing risks for foreign media in the region amidst the ongoing conflict. According to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, 63-year-old Liu Yuguang, a reporter for Phoenix TV, was wounded during a Ukrainian drone strike in the village of Korenevo. The journalist sustained an open head injury and a contusion to the skull, but declined hospitalization after being examined at a regional hospital. If confirmed, this marks the first reported case of a Chinese journalist being injured in the Kursk region as a result of cross-border drone attacks. Since the onset of the war, Ukrainian forces have increasingly targeted Russian territory including Kursk, in their efforts to disrupt Russian military operations and relieve pressure on Ukraine's front lines. And this concludes Midday Report here on TVP World. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more on our channel.